Hello and welcome to the Dr. Celia Corbo Show. My name is Dr. Celia Corbo, a functional health practitioner and licensed chiropractor. And on our show, we feature and showcase wonderful entrepreneurs and learn about their stories to success. Today, I have Kat Claridge on with me. Kat has a background in human resources, learning and development, and has led a professional board of directors for several years. Her corporate experience spans both public and private sector in several blue chip Canadian companies in the industries of telecommunications, financial services, and consulting, among others. She has recently made the decision to become an entrepreneur and launch her own business, Well Earth Holistic, providing coaching and support to her clients in a very different capacity. Her mission now is to help her clients reconnect with the natural world around them, elevate their innate abilities, and support their optimal holistic health of body, mind, and spirit. Welcome, Kat, to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for inviting me, Celia. This is
Of
awesome.
course. You are amazing. I absolutely love you. I love seeing you when you come in the clinic. It's just awesome. But I want to dive a little bit more into you and what you're doing. And I want to know a little bit more, like, what is Well Earth Holistic? How did it all get started?
Okay, so it's a bit of a long story. I basically launched Well Earth Holistic with the lofty goal of helping humanity return to its natural state of optimal health. And the story begins back in probably 2018. I want to say that was the year I felt compelled to start doing a lot of reading. I had my nose in a book all the time, and I was reading on a wide variety of topics. Nothing was off limits. I was on a mission to educate myself. And so if there was a topic I wanted to learn about, I would get a book written by an author that supported the topic and a book written by an author that didn't support the topic. And I'd read them both with an open mind, and then I'd sort of figure out where I landed in there. It's a great way to educate yourself, actually.
Absolutely.
So I was just a voracious reader. I just wanted to read. I think I read a book a week. Like I was almost at 52 books for the year in 2019, wow. By the end of 2019. And so 2020 came along, and we all know what happened in 2020. These lockdowns started, and had a lot of questions, and there weren't answers to the questions that I was asking about what was happening in the world. And I knew that the world was in this state of fear and confusion. So it set me on a bit of a path to find meaning. So initially, I was really just looking to develop some inner peace and coping skills for myself. And I'd been reading about energy healing. And I had read a book written by a shamanic practitioner who talked about some doctors in New York that were starting to refer their patients that had problematic cases that they couldn't figure out how to solve to these shamanic healers. And I was just fascinated by that. I thought that was just incredible. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole reading about that. And I came out of that learning about how we are energetic beings. We're not matter. We're energy that uses matter for the expression of life. And that's how I was led to Reiki. Because Reiki and shamanism, they sort of dovetail a little bit. Yeah. Reiki is a Japanese healing modality, and it's taught in 3 levels. Level 1, you learn to manage your own energy. Level 2, you can hang a shingle and become a practitioner and have clients and manage their energy. Level 3, you learn to become a master and to teach the modality. So initially I only planned on taking level 1, and I found a master and I started my training. And something interesting happened as I went through that process. So my Reiki master is a horsewoman, and she works with a lot of animals, and she's actually attuned some of her horses to give Reiki to people, which is quite fascinating. Topic of a whole other podcast. But
I love horses.
Horses are great with this energy. They really get it. They really understand it, which is why they're so perfect to be attuned to it. And she had offered a course on animal Reiki as well. So I decided to take that too, because I had a cat that I'd had. He was getting older, but he was a cat who had great health all of his life. He was an indoor cat, and I'd nursed him back to health so many times from things that he came down with. He was getting to be a little bit older, and I thought maybe he could benefit from me knowing Reiki. So I learned that more for him. And I noticed that in the 2 years that we were in lockdown, sort of off and on lockdowns and mask mandates and all of that stuff, and I was living in this, and I still am living in this condo, 16-story condo, and we don't have like other condos. We don't have like a Facebook page where we can talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So during lockdowns, we were literally isolated. Nobody was leaving their suites. Nobody was we weren't connecting with each other, and the energy was really heavy. And as I went through my Reiki training, I could feel that the energy in the whole enclosed space with hundreds of people living together was getting really, really heavy. And my cat's health started to decline. He started to take a turn, and I wasn't able to bring him back, even with the animal Reiki that I was learning. And I learned that in this training that animals are uniquely sensitive to our emotions. They will pick them up. Like a service dog that knows when its person is about to have an epileptic seizure, or the horse that knows that the rider on its back is a novice. They can sense that. And so they will take on these negative emotions. And our emotions are actually, when we have an emotion, we change our frequency according to that emotion. And these emotions run the scale from really low frequency, like the fear, the confusion, the anger, jealousy, depression, those types of things. Very low frequency. So you'll be vibrating at a very low rate. Whereas at the top of the scale, you have high frequency emotions, that's your love, gratitude, wonder, joy. And when you're up there, you're vibrating very, very quickly. Now we're humans, so we're going to have the gamut. We're going to spend time in each of those ranges on the spectrum. But the more time we spend in the lower emotions, you're going to feel them because you're human, but try not to live there. Because the longer you spend in that frequency, the more you invite that negative energy to come in and attract to you. And it starts in your energetic field and it works its way in, and then it manifests as disease or illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the more time we spend in those states, the more likely we are to become ill. So we had a lot of people with fear and confusion, and nobody knew for sure we knew there was more going on than we were being told, but we didn't know for sure what was happening. And I just knew that whatever it was, when we came out the other end of it, the world was going to need healing. So I decided to take the level 2 so I could treat other people. I was like, okay, I think I need to treat other people. And then as I went through that process, it was like, you know what? No, I think I actually need to teach it. So I went on to take the master courses for regular Reiki and animal Reiki as well. Because I really believed in going through the process that everybody needs to learn to manage their own energy. Every household should have a Reiki practitioner or some energy healing practitioner. And every family should have a Reiki master or somebody who's reached that level of training in that modality. So that was my Reiki path. And then at the same time that all of this was happening, because I was still reading, not as much, but I was still reading, I read a book called Gaia's Garden by Toby Hemingway. And it talked about a term I'd never heard before called permaculture. And it was, there's a more complicated way to describe what permaculture is, but to the layman, it's about the way humans garden and the way nature manages a garden.
Okay.
And basically, so, a lot of people avoid gardening because they think it takes too much time and effort and they don't know where to start. And, you end up going to the trouble and then the pests come in and decimate your crop. Well, nature doesn't plant things in perfect rows and all together in one spot, right? Nobody's hauling fertilizer into the forest or raking leaves in there, but it just inherently knows what to do. And if we learn how to mimic nature's design in our own garden, there's very little work involved. Nature actually takes care of most of it. So another rabbit hole I felt compelled to go down. So I was like, I got to learn more about this. So I began experimenting with some of these practices. Now I live in a condo. I don't have land. So my gardening is confined to containers. You can still do quite a bit with container gardening. But I went and joined the Women's Permaculture Guild, and I found myself a mentor, and I began educating and experimenting and volunteering with my mentor. Had some community garden projects she did, so I volunteered my time and just to get my hands dirty, literally and figuratively, in this world of permaculture and gardening. Learned so much. And we know that the dirty underbelly of all of our systems was laid bare during lockdowns, our education system, our big agriculture, big pharma, big retail. And I was now starting to see the big picture of all that. And I knew others should see it too. They weren't going to like what they saw, but our food supply and, I think a lot of us kind of have the basic understanding of it's not great. Yeah. And our bodies are a reflection of the world that we're living in. And we weren't designed to be sick like this. Our bodies were designed to heal themselves and to be in a state of optimal health at all times. And so with my Reiki now, my energy healing, my knowledge of how to nourish the body, this was a holistic approach that I developed, and I brought it together in Well Earth Holistic. It was born out of my desire basically to help my community return to this natural state of health.
Wow. Like, you really are Superwoman, aren't you? You're just
I don't know about that. I aspire to be, but I don't know if I'm there yet.
I remember the first time you gave me your business card, you're like, you can actually put this in a plot of like a container, and there's seeds in my business card. And I'm like, wow, you could do that. Like, it was just incredible. Like, you have definitely been through quite a journey in order to get to where you are now. And what sparked it? I know you had mentioned the pandemic and the low energy and the low frequency that was going on in the world, but was there something even within yourself that really sparked this, or was it just more of a global state of where we were as a society?
Well, I just saw this missed opportunity that we had in healthcare, because at this time I was also on my own healing journey at the time.
Yeah.
Functional doctors are now becoming very a little bit more sought after. They're hard to get in to see because they're very sought after. These are, for those who don't know what a functional MD is, it's a doctor who has a foot in naturopathy or homeopathy and has a more of a holistic integrative approach to healing.
Yeah.
And I had a doctor like this, and I was working with this doctor to help me manage my health in a more holistic way. And he was prescribing things to me like, okay, take these supplements, do this, do that, meditate every day, do yoga. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool, like it was a really
my doctor's telling me to do these things.
I know.
Like, what?
Really progressive approach. And he subscribed to the same beliefs that I did, which is that in the West, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a disease management system.
Absolutely.
And in the East, so Reiki is an Eastern healing modality. And there's others as well that, like acupuncture, they come from the East. In the East, so in the West, we define health as the absence of disease, right? In the East, the absence of optimal health is the disease. So you're playing to win or you're playing not to lose. And we're playing not to lose in the West right now. And I thought we should be playing to win a little bit more. And the doctor I was seeing at the time felt that as well. And so as I started down my Reiki path, I was like, this is what the future of healthcare looks like to me. And if this is the vision that spurs me in my mission, is that you have allopathic healers and spiritual healers coming together to form these holistic teams that have the common goal of returning this population to optimal health. And they communicate with each other, and they don't feel threatened by each other, right? They understand that they're all working the same objective with this particular client. They're sharing notes with each other and having meetings. And that's my blue sky vision of how I see the world. And so I'm like, I'm gonna do what I can to try to nudge it forward in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even with my practice, the pillars are physical body, chemical body, emotional body. And when I tell clients, when I tell patients that these are my pillars and I integrate everything together, they're so like wowed by it. And I love the way that you put that between comparing Eastern and Western medicine about winning and losing. Because, our system here is very much, oh, you're fine. Even though the patient doesn't feel fine, their markers are all okay, but there's no introspection on the emotional and what's going on with the spiritual, because that's still part of it. And I love that you're addressing that, especially through the works that you do. So, that's amazing. Yeah. And so with Reiki in particular, have you noticed, like, what's been your biggest success so far with Reiki? Either your level one with yourself or with someone else, or even with pets. I love that you are working with animals. That's, oh my gosh, amazing.
Some of my favorite clients are these
They're
four-legged
just so
souls.
pure.
They really are. They do nothing wrong. In my
No.
mind, everything they do is ordained by nature, and we can learn so much by them. And I think the biggest thing is like the humbling of
Yeah.
when you go down this healing path, even just without animal Reiki, just the regular Reiki, you're humbled by how little you know, right? There's so much more to life than this physical three-dimensional world that we see. And the more time you spend inside within yourself, the more you realize that this is all really contrived, and it doesn't really matter. We need our egos. There's a saying, the ego is the enemy. I don't believe the ego is the enemy. I believe unhealed ego is the enemy. You need your ego to survive in this world, but you need to also learn how to manage it. But it's just learning. You learn so much more about yourself. You have to face your shadow. You have to do a lot of inner work and do that healing. But as I was going through the process of treating other people, there's this confidence barrier that you have to break when you're doing something new, and this imposter syndrome, the women
Yep.
especially are victim to. And there'd be times when I'd be treating somebody and thinking, oh gosh, I know I'm just not feeling anything. And the client would be like, how did you do that? And it would always be really surprising when I think you get out of your own head a little bit and just let the energy flow and do what it's going to do. And then the client has an experience that's completely independent from what you're doing. And then I had one client that I went to her house, and I gave her a treatment, and she'd never done Reiki before, and she was a little skeptical, and she got off the table a complete believer. And she had a cat. This is sort of what also got me thinking I want to spend more time with animals, is that, and this will often happen with other practitioners too, animals will come into the room. If you're in a client's home and you're doing a treatment, they'll come into the room, and if it's a cat, they'll sometimes jump right up on the client and just be there. In this case, it was the client's cat, so it wasn't a problem. And she was all apologetic. I'm like, no, let her do whatever she wants to do. She wants to help with this process. She wants to be involved in it. I say let her. So it's been interesting just kind of learning about what I thought it was going to be like and what it actually turned out to be like. And there were some things I didn't expect, and that was just the reaction of people to treatments that, again, I'm a channel. I'm not giving you my energy. I'm just channeling the energy. Your body is doing all the work, right? And the animals just being so receptive. And it's just been so delightful to see some of the results and get the feedback afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we have a Great Dane, and when we're so happy, he's pitter pattering. When I'm a little bit more anxious or having a little bit more of a low frequency kind of day, he's there, kind of nudging me. So they are very in tune with emotions, and they're so pure with how humans feel. I think sometimes even more than we are, right? Because
they don't
it's the
have
energies.
egos. They don't have the egos that we have, right? So they don't have that noise in their head. They're connected to their intuition way more than we are. And that's why I say a lot of us kind of see ourselves at the top of the ecosystem food chain, when really we're just a part of it. We're just a part of the whole mosaic. And animals, I think when it comes to that piece, are a little bit above us. I think we can learn from them when it comes to connecting with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing that you mentioned in this story that you were sharing just now about your client being a skeptic. Do you come across that often? Are there is there any misconceptions about Reiki or energy healing that you feel need to be cleared? Because this is so important, that energy work. And sometimes people do have those negative associations with it. So how can we clear that air?
So one of the things that we do when we go through Reiki training is we heal religious trauma. Because there is a bit of a misconception that Reiki is a religion. It's not a religion at all. It's just about working with energy. And energy is everywhere. You can't create it or destroy it. It's always moving in and out of form. And it's like anybody who studied feng shui, for example, that's another way of working with energy, except it's your surroundings. It's a Chinese practice of managing surroundings so that the energy can flow more freely and it's not stagnant and it's not making you ill. So I think the biggest thing is just, I always explain whenever I do, and I do a lot of speaking, I speak for different groups if they want to learn about wellness and holistic healing, and I'll often be asked to talk about Reiki and what it is. And one of the things I'm very quick to stipulate is it's not a religion. Practicing Reiki doesn't cause you to contradict any religions that you might be following. In fact, I like to talk about the energy in the names that we use for it. So Reiki is actually two words. Rei means spiritual wisdom and ki means life energy. Oh. In Japan, the word for life energy is ki. In China, it's chi.
Yes.
India calls it prana.
Okay.
If you're a Christian, you'll call it the Holy Spirit. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the source of all that is. And so it applies to everyone, irrespective of your religion, where you come from, what your beliefs are. It's part of you, whether you like it or not. So you might as well learn how to work with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk us through what a Reiki session would look like? Maybe you did say you're more of a channel when it comes to the energy and the flow, but is there some kind of foundation that you follow, or what can you kind of guide someone listening in right now to expect with Reiki?
Absolutely. So the common denominator, I think, is that, yeah, you're channeling the energy. When you study Reiki, you learn how to recognize the energy. You learn how to feel it, and you learn how to focus your intention on an outcome with healing. So Reiki itself has its own intelligence. It knows where to go and it knows what to do, but it is supported a lot and influenced by somebody who knows how to recognize it and work with it. So a standard treatment might look like somebody gets on it's like a massage table. You're fully clothed. Usually you're on your back. I've got a pillow under you and a blanket over you. And all you have to do is just relax on the table, let the table support your full weight, focus on your breath, and just allow whatever to happen. And as the practitioner, your experience could be different depending on the practitioner and what they do, but typically we treat the chakras. So these are the energy centers of the body, and we have 7 main ones: your crown, your third eye, your throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root. There's other smaller chakras, but those are the main ones, and those are like your energy centers, where most of the energy flows. And then you have the meridians, or the nadis, and these are the sort of like the energetic vasculature that comes out of your energy centers and flows down your limbs and your trunk and out of your head and around you. And so I might start by just doing a little bit of a scan. We're taught to sort of feel the energetic barrier around the body, just to sense if there's any disruptions there. And if I'm not noticing anything, I'll just treat the chakras. I basically just take a moment to channel the energy and get myself into a bit of an alpha state. And then I place my hands around the chakra areas of the body, and I'll hold them there. Some areas, the Reiki practitioner will just hover above the body. Some jurisdictions don't like you actually making contact with the client. In Ontario, we can do it. And I'll hold my hands in place, usually for about 3 minutes or so, depending on how well the energy seems to be feeling there. And as I do that, I sometimes will get feedback. I'll sometimes see colors or get impressions of things. And I'll just sort of continue on that process until it feels complete. And it's usually about 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. And then afterwards, I'll just sit and chat with the client, and they'll sometimes share their experience with me and what's happened. And no 2 treatments are the same. You can come out of the treatment sometimes feeling a bit emotional. You might feel like you want to laugh or cry, or you might feel like a little bit irritated, it's like an acupuncture treatment, same kind of thing. Yeah. The energy's coming off the needles in that case, but you're releasing. So you might feel a release, you might feel a bit dizzy, or you might just feel really relaxed and blissed out. It could be anything.
Yeah, I know after our session, the next day, for me, I don't know why, everything happens the next day. My body needs time to process it, I guess. I felt so relaxed. Nice. And I woke up that day and I was like, why do I feel so relaxed today? And I'm like, oh, wait. I had my Reiki session with Kat yesterday. And sometimes you just don't even realize it because, like, what did I do today where I feel so good? And it's
Yeah.
not the day, it's just the whole energy cycle that has taken place
Yeah.
to eliminate all of that, those frequencies that may not be serving you.
It can be 48 hours sometimes. I
Oh,
usually tell
wow.
people, yeah, for the next 48 hours, just treat yourself very gently.
Yeah.
Try not to do too much doom scrolling or watch the news or, alcohol and caffeine. Try to keep that down to a minimum. Just get lots of sleep, do lots of journaling, meditate, drink herbal tea. Just avoid crowds, stuff like that, just to protect your energy because the more you can just sort of let that for the next 48 hours flow through, yeah, you'll get the full benefit. That's quite common, actually.
Yeah, and that actually brings me, I was going to ask you this question and you transitioned into it so nicely. Is there something that you, I'm going to say prescribe your clients to do at home, not just for that self-care after treatment, but a way to stay consistent in between therapies with you?
Yeah, I'm a big, big proponent of journaling. It is so, so important, and not typing,
No,
handwritten
handwritten.
journaling,
Yeah.
completely different. Um, it's a conversation with your higher self when you journal. And I do it multiple times a day, actually, as the time permits. Every single night I'm journaling, especially when it comes to gratitude. You should, if you do nothing else, just take a few minutes at the end of every day or some point even first thing in the morning is good, before you turn on your phone, because really you shouldn't be turning on your phone right after you wake up. You
Yeah.
should be sort of welcoming the day, taking some deep breaths, doing some gentle stretching, yoga, water your plants like I do or whatever, and take some time to write just 3 things that you're really grateful for. It can be insignificant, silly things like my comfy bed or the fact that I have power in my home or something that if you didn't have it, you'd miss it. And really take the time to feel in your heart, feel that gratitude let your heart swell up with it. And if you can do that every day just for a few minutes, your whole outlook on life goes up. You feel you've got more motivation to do things. You're more of a glass half full person. It's just good medicine all around for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my clients journal because it actually helps balance the brain from a neurological standpoint. The action of writing, the imagination of it, the visualization of what you want to write about. But some people, like myself included, it's hard to journal sometimes. You feel like there's a block or you feel like there's this lack of time for it. But just starting small is such a great place to start. Like you mentioned, my comfy bed. Like that's such an easy thing to just jot down. And then as you practice, I find I get the need and the want to be more elaborative. Do you find
Yeah.
that too with your clients?
Like anything, it's a muscle that the more you
Yeah.
flex it, right, the better
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
With meditation, same thing. Like I would say in a perfect world, everybody should be meditating every day. But even I don't get to do that, so I'm not gonna insist on that too much. But meditating even doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. It can just be about stopping what you're doing, looking around, and just being fully present in the moment. Because all life is a series of present moments.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're people that have anxiety are living in the future, people that are depressed are living in the past. But if you can get really good at living in the present,
Yeah.
then you don't have to worry about your mental health as much, and you can be in a meditative state a lot easier if you get good to connecting with the moment. And sometimes I find even if you just can spend a minute with your eyes closed and just focusing on the darkness behind your eyelids, or even just going out in nature and just standing there with your eyes closed and listen. Like get good at listening all around you. What do you hear? And you're not listening with judgment, you're just observing. Because that's how you activate your higher self. When you're in a meditative state, when the grocery list pops into your head, that's your ego saying, oh, we got to go grocery shopping. But the part of your brain or the part of yourself that recognized you were distracted, that's your higher self. So if you can get good at, again, observe your thoughts without judgment, observe the sounds around you without judgment, and you become more connected to your higher self, and then you can live in the present a lot easier, you can meditate a lot easier. And when you come out of a meditation, first thing you're going to want to do is journal about it,
Yeah.
right?
That when I would, before the pandemic, I was going to yoga religiously, like every single night, because it was a movement meditation for me. And that I look back now on some of the journal entries that I used to write, and I'm like, who was this person? How did this even come out of my brain? Because it's just this, it's just, you're on this wave of just high frequency, and absolutely you just want to start journaling. And I think there's these progressions that you go through, and a lot of the misconceptions when it comes to journaling or being in this emotional realm of health is that you should already be perfect and you should already be doing all of these things. But just like anything, it's a slow build, and then eventually you're going to feel that yearn and that longing to be better and wanting to do more.
One of my favorite sayings is, do not focus on perfection, focus on progress.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Right?
That's great.
Because that's really, as long as you're making step, even if it's, you think you should be here, but even if you're just a little bit ahead today than you were yesterday, you're still doing well.
Yeah, because you can really obsess over perfection, and it's just going to keep you stuck. I'm an example of that.
Yeah, and I like to say too, because my son wanted to create a YouTube channel and he wanted to get going on it, and he just kept, he was obsessing over, his backdrop and his watermark and what did he want, and then and he never ended up doing it. I'm like, dude, you just got to get in there, because action creates clarity, right? As you move forward, the way becomes clear.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, that's amazing. And when it comes to Reiki, because I also want to talk about how you're a maker and all the other wonderful things that you do, but I just have one final question about Reiki.
Yeah.
Are there any progressions that you're seeing within the field of Reiki that you're eager to explore or tell more people about?
I would love, I know this again, talk about lofty goals. I would love for Reiki to be introduced in the education curriculum. I think all kids should learn this, because when you're born and you're very young, you're connected, a little bit more connected. Your brain state is typically theta. I think the younger you are, the deeper the brain state you're in most of the time. And then as you get older, it becomes alpha and then beta, right? And when we're really, really young, remember when you were a kid and you'd be playing at something and you'd just be completely immersed in it and lost in it. And because kids have that ability to do that, and it gets programmed out of you as you get older. But I think children, because they're so connected in that regard, if they can learn this that early on, it's going to be magic. Like, they're going to just have this magical childhood, and they're going to grow up just seeing the world through a completely different lens than we do typically. And I think really it would, our world in just a couple of generations would be completely different if kids learned this as a matter of course.
Yeah, you know what? I love that you bring that up, because in my functional neurology training, we speak about left brain, right brain, and we are so nurturing the left brain, which is all IQ, and not the right brain, which is that EQ, that emotional intelligence. And yeah, you're absolutely right that if we did implement that more in our school system or in everyday life, at home even, just small little fragments, it would just make everything so much better. There would be a lot more peace. I do believe that.
Oh, for sure.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah. Well, I want to get into how you're a maker, because you've made me some things and they were just absolutely amazing. The lavender soap, Omi's bar for when we're grooming him. Tell us how you got into making, because I find it so fascinating.
It's funny. So it started with my garden. While I was growing things, I ended up with an excess of plants, and I just didn't know what to do with them. And I was like, I had this aloe, this monstrous aloe. It was about to outgrow my condo. And I was like, I've had this aloe since I moved in here. And so it was sort of like, it was an important plant to me. And I was like, I want to make something out of this aloe that, so I can just, it was all about using the resources. It's part of permaculture is you don't overuse, you don't take more than you need, but you use everything. And so I saw an Instagram post about making soap with aloe, and I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. That's what I'll do. So I cut off some spears of aloe and I went about making soap, and I had some lavender on hand. So lavender is, of course, a very popular fragrance for soap.
Beautiful.
And yeah, so God, it's easier than I thought to make soap. So I took my soap to a few friends and said, try this out. Let me know what you think. And I had one friend who hated bar soap. Wasn't at all. Never. I don't like bar soap. And she loved it. And before I knew it, I was being commissioned to make stuff. Like, she says, "Oh, your soap's great. Do you make candles by any chance?" I'm like, "I don't know. Let me figure it out." So I started YouTubing some stuff about candles. I'm like, "Oh, this is actually easier than I thought too." So I got into making candles and started selling them at craft shows. And they're really popular. And then my son says, "Mom, can you make some shampoo?" He was really concerned about, his hair falling out. And I'm like, "Yeah, let me look that up." So I found a recipe for shampoo, and I had some of the aloe. I used my aloe for that as well. And I was using my herbs in the garden for my candles and my soaps. And then a friend of mine said, we live in Toronto. There's a lot of pet owners in Toronto, a lot of people there's dogs everywhere, and people love their animals here. My friend said to me, "You should really think about making some pet products." So I'm like, okay, let me check that out. So I would just explore. I'm a big explorer. I'm very curious by nature, and I love to try things and experiment with new things and then road test them with my friends. And so now I have this apothecary line of stuff that I make in my kitchen using ingredients from my container garden on my terrace.
Amazing. I love, you know what? I think it's the best way to be, because we are, even when something's organic or when something is deemed natural, you go read the ingredients and there's so many hidden agents in there. But like, really, how organic is it? It's just, the most organic is what you make at home. So it's just amazing that you're able to be so resourceful, get all of these things just from your own pots at home and make them.
It's so empowering, the feeling of, "Oh, I'm gonna make a salad today. I think I'll go grab some tomatoes from the garden." It's just like,
yeah.
And in the old days, this is what we did. Everybody grew their own food, right? And I think things are coming full circle. I think people are starting to now see, if you're lucky enough to have even a quarter of an acre of land, you don't need much, really. You can feed a family of 4 on what you can grow on a quarter acre of land. And especially when the time I spent at the community gardens that we would do, and people would have their kids out and they'd have their little toy shovels and toy rakes, and they'd be out there. The kids just love it. They love to, pick food and eat it right out of the garden. And it's some of my fondest memories when I was a kid, and I would go visit my aunt, and she had a whole garden of vegetables in the backyard, and I'd just go out there and I'd be like a little rabbit eating all of her vegetables. And it's just such a wholesome way to grow up. If you can grow up with food growing in your backyard and learning to appreciate nature. And so another one of my visions is, eventually I want to have my own little homestead where I can live off the land, and kids leave the classroom and they come to my homestead, and I teach them about plant guilds and companion planting and the ecosystem and how it's all interconnected, and how it's okay that I have aphids here because it brings in the ladybugs, and it's okay that I've got squirrels here because it brings in the hawks, and everything balances itself out. And it's just such a wonderful way to live if you have the ability to do that. And I also help coach people to set up that structure in there at their homes as well.
Considering that I have zero green thumb, I was gifted a plant by one of my friends, and she's like, "This doesn't need direct sunlight. You can just put it anywhere, water it a couple times a month." Yeah. It's still doing well, but I mean, it could be thriving. So for someone like me who doesn't have a green thumb at all, where would you recommend that we start? Or what's an easy way to start having this home garden where you can keep things alive?
So and again, it's going to depend on if you've got land or not. It's a completely different tack if you've got containers. One thing that's really a lot easier to do than you realize is to start seeds indoors. If you've got a sunny window, and if you don't, you can get grow lights. They're really not expensive. And you can grow a lot just on your windowsill. Like, even just start small. I wouldn't recommend starting large. Start small. Start with maybe some herbs, because herbs are really easy to grow. Grow some thyme, grow some rosemary, some parsley on your windowsill, some mint. Mint is really easy. And it's the coolest thing to do is just to grow some mint, and then once it's fully grown, snip it off hang it upside down from like a dowel or a hook in your kitchen. And when it's dry, make tea with it.
Oh,
And
that's such a
that's
wonderful idea.
a really easy way to get sort of like a full circle yield from a small crop from a plant. That again, herbs don't need a ton of attention. They just need some sun and watering. You can even just water the bottom of the pot and let it soak up through the bottom. You don't have to water the top. It's actually easier not to do that. So yeah, I give people tips on how to start their own seeds, and what are some of the easiest plants to grow, and just the basics of how to do it. And I really unpack it for them and demystify it, so it makes it a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, I love that tea idea because I just realized a little while ago that the tea bags that we use, some of them are plastic. And I actually cut the tea outside so we're not soaking the plastic and then drinking these microplastics and dyes and things like that. So
Yep.
I love that idea with the herbs and the tea. That's wonderful.
Yeah, the tea bags will leach toxins
Yeah.
into your drink. So yeah, you can even buy the fair trade organic tea in bags, and like you say, take it out of the bags and just put it all and just get yourself a little diffuser. It really is the best way.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing tidbit because that's an easy way to just start, something.
Very easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about the job sense of this all, because
Okay.
to my understanding, you are still working in corporate while also being an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep, I spend my day teaching people how to use their Microsoft applications. That's my day
Okay.
job.
There's a lot of secrets in Microsoft applications, so that's a good
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to say I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to Microsoft applications. But this is So it's my day job, and it's funding my dream. So I'm again, while it's not where I see myself being for the rest of my life, I'm very grateful for the job. I'm very lucky that I have a great team that I work with, and my manager she trusts me to do my job. And so I'm really in a good place.
Yeah.
And I'm but the trick is now I'm working with a financial advisor to help me map out how do I get to the point where I can retire early and just focus on being an entrepreneur and growing my business. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and same, because who doesn't want to retire early?
Yep.
But in regards to starting this entrepreneur journey, was it very difficult? Were there a lot of beliefs that were limiting you from, oh, I still have my corporate job, or this is going to take too much work? How did the fruition of entrepreneurship maybe, cause a little bit of a rift with your corporate job, or did it?
Well, I mean, yes, depending on the company that you work for, you may have to sign a outside activities authorization form. I had to do that. It's just if you're working in an organization, they just like to know that there's no conflicts of interest, because
Right.
I work for a federally regulated organization. And like when I was on the board, when I was managing the board of directors for the HR chapter that I was a part of, I had to, it was a volunteer position. There was no financial gain that was going to conflict with what I was doing at my job. So some organizations do kind of require that. I just recommend to anybody who's working in a corporate job and wanting to start their own businesses, be transparent. Don't, be upfront with your manager about it, and just, I think it's just better than feeling like you have to cover it up and do your own thing. And in my case, I was really lucky because my manager she leads a therapy dog program for a local not-for-profit. And she was interested in my animal Reiki, and she actually had me come and speak to her her dog therapy volunteers. And I did a whole information session. I led them in a meditation. So, I ended up having her as a bit of an ally. So, your manager might be a little different from mine, but I think it's easier if you're honest and transparent about it. it just keeps everything on board, and it makes the process less stressful for you.
Yeah, I think there's already a huge stress when it comes to wanting to start your own project, your own business, anything that you have to embark on your own. And that's amazing that you have that support there at work, because that is pretty rare to come by, I'd say.
It is. And I just, also have integrity. Don't use your systems at work for your own business. Try to make sure that you're, when I go to work every day, I'm focused on the job. The job is number one. And when the job's over, I'm on my other laptop working on my business. And I try to make sure my worlds are delineated that way. And I don't ever want there to be, I want to live with that integrity and make sure that I'm focused on the job. This is the job at hand. And it's not until that ends that I focus on my entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think that's even wonderful just from a karmic perspective.
Yeah.
Because then you're not using and, setting yourself up for that, retaliation in the future. So that's great.
You get back what you give. So just be
Exactly.
conscious of what you're putting out there, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Kat, I would love to know if you would like to share anything more with us here on the show today. I also want to get a good idea of what books you've read too, if you can share some of those with us as well.
Oh my gosh. What I'll do is I was thinking about this actually. I'm going to send you a list of my recommended books.
Amazing.
That I think people should read that I've read, and that have been life-changing for me. So I'll send you a list, and you can share that with your
Perfect.
listeners.
I'll put it, when I get it, I'll put it in the notes for the show. And that would be great, because I think a lot of the times when I go to Indigo, even as an individual, I just don't know where to start. There's so many titles to read, and there's also so many titles that you want to read, and you get overwhelmed and start building a library, then you don't end up touching any of these books because it's overwhelming. So that would be awesome. If you could send some of those over, that'd be great. Yeah,
absolutely I will. And it's just I'm at the point now where I'm starting to get the word out of what I started the business a couple of years ago. It was June of 2022.
Okay, yeah.
That I actually officially launched Well Earth Holistic. And so I'm now, a year and a half in, 2 years in. And I'm starting to get a little bit of traction and getting my name out there. So I'm doing things like I'm going to the pet shows to talk about my pet products and my animal Reiki services. And I'm going to other shows for holistic healing. Those are really great. It's a great way to get out and meet the community and learn what questions people have, and being able to talk to people about this. And it's taken me in a bit of a tangent where I do a little bit of coaching with people. Sometimes it's a little bit of a holistic life coach sort of thing that I'm doing. I do have some mentees that I work with, and this is becoming, it's funny how it's sort of growing into something organically that I really didn't expect. And I think it's good if you're an entrepreneur, try to keep a little bit of an open mind as your business grows. And this is something I learned too in Reiki, is things will happen. The universe will make things happen in a specific way. If you have something that you really want, if you want your business to succeed, focus on your business, but sort of let the universe guide you, because you'll sometimes find yourself going down tangents, and you'll just find that the way is cleared for you, and it just very easily drifts off this way. Let it go and see where it takes you, because that to me is the universe saying this is what you're meant to do. So I really think it's good to keep an open mind and see what unfolds sometimes on the journey.
I love that, because even the way that we met, that was a very interesting, like at the yoga show in 2023, I signed up for that show, I think like 3 days before sign up had ended. And that's how we met. And then a year plus later, we're still connected. We're still going strong with, having wonderful encounters and all the things. And it's just, you just have to have an open mind and let this universal energy just guide you, because the more resistance you have, then, the more difficult it will be.
And you know that you're not on the right path if you're running into obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, right? And it's time to take a step back and regroup.
Yeah.
It's like when when you get hired for a job, sometimes it happens really quick. You get the offer and the letter and things happen. It's like it has a life of its own. And that's kind of how the universe works, is the how doesn't matter. Don't worry about the how. Just be open to whatever you need to do. Just keep your mind focused on the end goal, and the how will work itself out.
I love that. Because like we mentioned in the show, we're so focused on perfection and not progress, and that progress will naturally happen with that end goal in mind. I love that. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Kat, where can people find you on social media or in the world? Because people definitely need to see you more.
Well, I'm on Instagram, Well Earth Holistic. That's where I spend most of my time. I have a footprint in all of the socials, but that's where I spend most of my time. My website is wellearthholistic.com. You can reach me at info@wellearthholistic, or on Instagram. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions, so please feel free to reach out and ask away.
Awesome. Kat, thank you so much for coming on today. It was such a pleasure having you on the show and getting to hear about your story and also your expertise in being an entrepreneur. And I look forward to possibly having you again, and for our viewers to enjoy and interact with our listening today.
I would love that. And thank you again so much. It was so much fun and such an honor.
Yeah.
And I trust that the people that needed the message got it. So
Absolutely.
Thanks to you for that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Tune in to the next episode, and we'll see you later.
Thanks so much.